Antidepressants meant to help teenagers and children may in fact not be working. A new study in fact looked at 14 different antidepressant drugs, and only one, called fluoxetine, also known as Prozac, worked better than a placebo at treating some of the major symptoms in young people with major depression. Dr. Roshini Raj from NYU Langone Medical Center is with us to discuss, and lots to get to here. But first, the results of this study would suggest that perhaps it is simply unsafe for young children and teens to be taking antidepressants at all.
That's true, and this has been a concern for a while. In fact, the FDA issued a black box warning against antidepressant use for children, citing the fact that many of them do increase the risk of suicide in this population. That being said, there are some effective medications. This study did show, as you said, Prozac was better than placebo, but the other 13 drugs were found to either have intolerable side effects or just weren't effective compared to a sugar pill.
Well, the ultimate intolerable nature of suicide. I mean, let's stop right there.
Yeah.
Anything that is increasing rates of even the attempt obviously have to be now in the crosshairs. What is it about drugs meant to do the exact opposite that are now having these effects?
Well, whenever you're affecting the brain's neurochemistry, which is what these drugs are doing, sometimes you do have unpredictable results, especially in young children with developing brains. But we even know for adult antidepressants, there are sometimes an increased risk of suicide. And it's very interesting. You know, when you're very, very depressed, you have a very low energy level. You almost don't have the energy to go out and make a suicide plan and actually act on it. When you first treat depression, you're actually increasing that energy because the depression is slightly improving. You may actually have the energy to go and commit suicide. So we do see that with many antidepressants, but particularly it was worrisome in the younger population.
Okay, so interestingly, just from the drugs perspective now, I know that when antidepressants are prescribed, the issue, as much as anything, is the time it takes to decide if any impact has in fact been had with taking that specific medication. I mean, this is a process. You won't see a change in a day or two. We're talking sometimes weeks and weeks or months and months.
Weeks or even months, and it's often trial and error to find the exact medication that's going to work for you. Particularly difficult in children because they may not be as good at reporting their symptoms, and their symptoms could be very different than adults. So we have more irritability or behavioral disturbances, problems in school, social problems with school. These are not easy things to tease out for a child or a teenager, but depression is a very real concern both for younger children and for teenagers, so it certainly shouldn't be ignored. It's just, how are we going to treat it if these medications for the most part are not very effective?
Well, then how? I mean, and I know this. I know that there have been studies that have shown that rigorous exercise have as much impact on depressive state as any drug out there. How are doctors such as yourself going to be looking to treat this if antidepressants simply do not work? Right.
Well, the exercise studies are very interesting. They've been done mainly in adults, so we don't really know the effects on children. We do know that cognitive behavioral therapy, individual psychotherapy can be very effective, and so it's going to be that plus or minus a combination, particularly with certain drugs that have been shown to work. But I think the bottom line is, as parents, to really monitor your children very closely, watch out for any signs of changes in behavior, changes in school performance, because even if this study shows that most of the drugs don't work, it's still a very real concern. Suicide is the #1 cause of death in the teenage population, so you really want to make sure you're doing some kind of treatment, probably a combination of psychotherapy and other modalities.
At an R&D in some drug company right now, are they looking to create children's medications that, again, are different, since depression in an adult is such a vastly different thing? Also, again, the ability to discuss the social aspects of treatment. If you have a young child who's depressed, they can't quite, with the appropriate subtlety and nuance, tell their parents what's wrong with them. Also, I guess, as much as anything, you run up against parental bias here, confirmation bias, a parent wanting to see a change in their child.
Right. I mean, you've raised so many good points, and it shows us how difficult it is to conduct research studies on young children in depression, which makes it a challenge for the pharmaceutical industry. And so, as much as I hope they're working on it, it's so difficult that I'm not sure people really want to grapple with that issue. It's just very difficult to prove that things work or don't work for depression in children. However, it's definitely needed.
This is such a vital frontier. We really appreciate the time today, Dr. Raj.
Thank you.